Mossberg bolt action 22s certainly aren't a stranger to this channel. Our chronology's got plenty of examples we've done videos on, but it's always been this first page. It's been elusive until now, and we've gone right to the top. Let's check it out. Mossberg Garage. We're back out here late night. I like doing these late night videos. So what do we got here? A Mossberg Model B. This thing is vintage 1928 to 1930. Somewhere in there. These were made from 28 to 32, but there were two different versions. And this is the earlier version. So 28 to 30 is where we're dating it. They're 22 caliber, short, long rifle, 22-inch barrel, single shot bolt actions. And these were early Mossbergs, but not the beginning. So it's interesting to talk about this thing. We're going to kind of start sort of at the beginning and just bring you up to speed of where Mossberg was at when they came up with this guy. This was basically the start of Mossberg coming out with, like, let's say, their own rifles. Let's put it like that. So Oscar Mossberg, born in Sweden, 1866, immigrates to the U.S. in 1886 at about 20 years old. He worked for Iver Johnson from 1892 to 1900. He started in the bicycle department, but soon showed that he had an affinity for firearms and designing stuff for firearms. So it didn't take long before he had his first patent under Iver Johnson, if you want to look that up. Again, I'd love to show you these patents, but we can't do that anymore here without risking getting in trouble with YouTube. They seem to think that that's showing how to construct a firearm, me showing you a patent from back when Oscar Mossberg was 20 years old. But that patent was 511620. That was for a barrel strap catch for a revolver. And he had a bunch of patents under Iver Johnson. If you really want to dig into Mossberg's patent, he was a pretty prolific designer. There's a lot of stuff there. 1900 to 1902, he worked for C.S. Shattuck Arms Company. For him, there really wasn't much growth there. He was very driven, and this Shattuck Arms Company really, it's like one of the things I read about that company was that they also produced tobacco, and they would close down for a couple of months out of the year. They would close the gun part of the company, and they would all the people that were making guns would go out and pick tobacco and make tobacco, and that just wasn't for him. So he didn't last there long, although they did have some connections later on over some of his designs and some of his production of his stuff. This is all stuff that you could sit there and you could really dig in and research. These are interesting topics that go pretty deep. But for now, let's just continue with the Oscar Mossberg, This Is Your Life stuff till we get up to this point, So 1902 to 1916, he worked for J. Stevens Arms and Tool Company. Now, this was the shotgun that we just recently did. The, why is the name escaping me? The 520. The 520, he was working there during that period because the 520, remember we dated that thing to somewhere around 1909 to 1915, and he worked there from 1902 to 1916. So he was there for the production of that, probably rubbing shoulders with good old John Browning. and learning about some serious firearms design and production, because that's when Stevens Arms and Tool Company was exploding. They doubled, tripled, tenfold their workforce in that 10-year period, from like '06 to 16. And in 1915, 16, they sold out to New England Westinghouse, and they took over. This was like sort of the beginnings of World War One. Things got weird for J. Stevens Arms and Tool Company, and they kind of reformulated. They went on their own way. Some of that history is back in that 520 video you could check out. 1916, he went to Marlin. He worked there from 16 to 19. They were basically working on World War One contracts. Specifically, the mechanism that he was working with is really interesting. I studied this one time. It's the mechanism that prevented machine gun fire from tearing apart the propeller of a plane. If you ever see the machine gun was mounted on the front of the plane, and it fired through the propeller. So how is it able to fire through the propeller without actually hitting the propeller? Well, that's like a camming system. It's pretty interesting. And he worked on that. He worked under Mr. Carl Swibelius. All right, we've heard of this guy before in our Marlin videos. He was the chief designer of Marlin from 1914 to 1926. This is some pretty good resume right here so far, right? Now, he started OF Mossberg and Sons in 1919. They had some interesting stuff there that they were producing. It's really cool to go and check out their history back there, their Brownie pistol and stuff like that. But once again, let's just move ahead till we at least catch up to like right here, and take the history over from there. One of these days, we might have to go backwards, back into this history again. In 1926, they became a corporation. They incorporated and became Mossberg and Sons Inc. Okay, so after incorporating, they had the Brownie pistol and a hammerless repeater. Okay, now this hammerless repeater, it has an interesting history. Again, it's not the rifle we have here on the table, so I'm not really going to pour into it and tear it apart. But basically, it was a Savage design. The patents, if you want to check them out, they're US 1019367 and US 1027773. Well, those are Savage patents, and I found another one. Check this one out. This is a Arthur Savage patent too that directly relates to what we're talking about here, and that one is 839517. So what these was it was a design that Savage had. It was the model 1903, 1909, and 1914. Pump action 22 rifles. They basically were the first hammerless 22 pumps, and Savage came out with these 1903 to 1921. They sold these things. Okay, in 1921, Mossberg kind of slid in the door there and started producing these things. He kind of like bought the design for $1, or there's something going on there. It was pretty interesting. And that's why in this chronology right here, you see a Model K. That was just the basic model. There was an M with an octagon barrel and a pistol grip stock, and that was from 27 to 28. And there was an S, which was a shorter version. They started producing that in 1926. And that K they started in 1921 when Savage stopped making it. But not only that, there was also another company that started making them after Savage kind of discontinued, or they were making them for Savage towards the end, and those were called Meriden. Somebody out there is going to kill me for like butchering this whole history right here, because this might not be 100% right, because again, this is just a whole jumble of what was going on. Nothing simple about Mossberg, but I just don't want you to think, if I'm talking about this one, that we just started here, because we certainly didn't. It might be up at the top of the chronology, but also there's a K, an M, an S. You see other ones there. But those were all discontinued in 1931. But they cross with this guy. So now this guy, there was also a private brand of Model M's marked Premier from Montgomery Ward. A lot of those store brands flying around back then, you know what I mean? And those, there could be a whole collector market just for those. They're hard to keep track of. But during that period, starting in 1928, was Mossberg had this relationship with FC Taylor Fur Company, who they were selling these Model Ks, Model Ms, Model Ss, whatever. They were selling these pump action 22s to this company, FC Taylor Fur Company, St. Louis, Missouri. And they had a really good relationship with them. And this company, they contracted Mossberg to produce a 22 caliber. They called it a convertible trap gun. So they wanted them to make it exclusively for them in 1922. Now this trap gun. When you hear trap gun, you're thinking like like shotgun for trap shooting. These things are really interesting. So the patent was a CD Lovelace patent 1098742, and what this thing was, this Taylor Fur Company, FC Taylor Fur Company, already had these things being made for them for years, since around 1915 or so, something like that. They were a 38 caliber barrel hooked to a contraption where if an animal came and grabbed bait that you would put on a hook and they pulled the bait, the 38 caliber, basically a 38 caliber rifle, it was just a barrel connected to a stand, would shoot the animal and kill it. And the one that was the 38 caliber one was called the Sure Shot. Who was making this thing, I don't know, but they wanted Mossberg to make this thing, and it was called the Taylor Fur Getter. That's what this thing was called when Mossberg started making it. And then in 1928, so here we go. This is where we're getting there now, all right? Because this guy is 28 to 30. So in 1928, FC Taylor Fur Company said, "Hey, why don't you make us a 22 rifle as well? We also want to contract that." But they didn't have the same exclusivity. Mossberg was like, "All right, we'll make you that, but we want to sell it too. You could sell it under your brand." So the FC Taylor Fur Company called it the Trapper's Special. So you'll see some of these that look exactly like this, marked Trapper Special. That's where they're coming from. They're actually like a store brand for FC Taylor Fur Company. I mean, this was easy for them. They were already tooled up to make these barrels, so the barrels must have been very similar, to the trap. So Mossberg also produced and sold this rifle themselves as the Mossberg Model B single shot rifle. So here we are. We made it. So that's 1928. So interesting. That's where it came from, was kind of like a bleed off from an exclusive trapper gun that was made for a fur company. Bet you never would have guessed that, right? In a million years. So this guy, there's two versions of this Model B that you're going to see out there. There's an early two-piece bolt that was 28 to 30. Then there's one-piece bolt guns from 31 to 32. The difference is not only in the bolt, however. The differences were in other things too. Obviously, you could see here is the two pieces right here. So it's kind of obvious to see which one you got. Here's some exploded drawings of both different bolts, but it was more than the bolts. The differences were also in the firing pin or striker, the trigger spring, the extractor. Most other action parts were different. The bolt looked different. The parts were kind of like bigger. It kind of gave it like a heftier feel. They look like they're a little bit larger. But dimensionally, I think they're pretty much the same, but they just kind of looked a little beefier. And that second version was commonly called, like they called it, the improved model. So it wasn't just that they made changes, they called it like a pretty serious, improvement. And both of those versions were produced for Ward Westernfield as a store brand. The first version, like this one with the two-piece bolt, was supposedly just unmarked. But the second version had Premier written on it. So if you have one of these that's stamped Premier, that's where it comes from. It should be a second version and a Ward's Westernfield store brand. They also had at the same period here, you see in the timeline, there's some other letters too in here. There's an L, and there is an R. So the L was produced from 1929 to 1932. That's a single shot Peabody Martini type falling block. And this is a Mossberg patent, an OF Mossberg patent, 1790482. These were not very popular. Kind of like everything at that time was kind of moving away from that falling block action. Everything was all about repeaters and bolt action. So they didn't really do well, but I really like the sound of one of those. I think I would like one of those. I want to see if I could find one. And there was also a Model R that was from 1930 to 32. See, these all like ran at the same time, They were doing well then, Mossberg. They had a lot of stuff thrown out there. The Model R was a bolt action repeater, tube fed repeater. There was also a Model C that was made from 1931 to 1932 that was basically the same configuration, just a larger rifle. So it's almost like, Dad would be able to get the Model C and the kid would have the Model B. It's kind of like what they were probably going for. So the C was just a bit larger. So this guy was one of my recent gun show acquisitions. And these definitely come in better shape, you know what I'm saying? But I just fell in love with it, wanted it, and added it to the group of guns that I purchased that day. Now, one thing that we got going on here, there was some pretty serious oxidation going on here on this metal. Not when I got it. It looks like somebody put a stop to it a long time ago, but it had already done its damage. So it has this kind of look to it. This isn't something that us as firearm enthusiasts that deal with these old ones, it's not anything that we haven't seen before. And the pitting isn't deep enough or damage done enough where it's going to hurt anything, especially because it's a 22. And because of this, the locking lug to this thing is basically just the bolt handles sliding into this area here. And as you can see, it may not be the tightest of lockups now because of its age. You don't really want to beat it up with anything. This is like a quiet 22. You might even just want to put some shorts, CB caps or whatever in here and just knock around. You don't want anything crazy going off in here anyway. But good shape otherwise. Like under the stock wasn't anything crazy. all rotted out or anything. Just it has that look. I mean, some people like that better than it looking mint. And yeah, so one thing that's scary though, I'll tell you right now. You get these types of guns. They're very old. First of all, even if it was like literally out of the box, brand new, you're getting a gun from like 1928 that's even brand new. You really want to vet it carefully. Who knows what's going on with these things? 1928 was a long time ago. And just safety things, quality control, or just what's allowed to actually be produced, let's say. It's not, they don't have the same handle on it that they would have today, let's say. So you just want to kind of mess around with it and just get a feel with it before you start putting live ammo in it. You really want to check them well. And I noticed, I only want to do this once because dry firing this guy is probably not a good idea, but so we're definitely clear here. And what I noticed is that with the bolt closed, so it doesn't cock or anything. You have to do the cocking on your own. Every shot, you have to pull this back. I noticed that if I jiggle the bolt, it would drop. And yeah, I would fire without touching the trigger. Just from, I could do it without the damage by holding this, if you don't mind, so it won't be as dramatic because it's not going to snap. But I'll show you how it'll release. There's no way I could get this to release right now without touching the trigger. It's the only way I'd be able to do it is if I pulled the trigger to release this. So you see, my other hand is right here. I'm not touching the trigger, and I could get it to release just by manipulating the bolt. Even just a slight manipulation, just like that. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful. If you had this thing loaded, you don't want to walk around at the range, arranging your targets, or walking across the place, or marching around across your land looking for a rabbit. Might not be a good idea because even just putting your hand on here, bang, you could just fire. So you probably want to leave, and you don't want to put a round in here and close this and not cock it, because I mean, who knows if it gets hit here, if it would. Let's see, can we look and see? Let's see. If it got hit on the back, would it protrude? It's already protruding, so who knows? Yeesh. Here's the thing. Go to the range, be careful. Just load it one at a time and make sure you're keeping it downrange at all times. You keep it downrange when you open it. You keep it downrange when you put a round in here. You keep it downrange facing your backstop as you close it, as you raise it, as you shoot, because you have to be careful that it could just drop at any time. I don't know if there's something wrong with this one. The sear is worn, or if that's just how they are. Test yours out and see if it does that. Let me know. What else we got here? I can show you. I'm pretty sure during this I would have pulled up some pictures of the Meridans, but here's my Savages. This is a model 1914. See, there's models of these that have removable magazines too, and man, there's one of them at a gun store. One of my favorite haunts, and it's on consignment, and the guy wants like too much for it. It's a pain in the neck. It looks like this one, same petita and everything, but it has that box mag, and I always wanted one of these. This is Tube magazine. I think this is around 1918. The Savage model, and the 1929. This is somewhere in the 30s. This is around this guy's vintage. This is around 32, I think, manufacturing date. Well, this one is a model 29, and this is a Ranger. The Sears Ranger store brand. And if you're interested in these Savages, I have videos on either of these. They're very old videos. I probably could do with an update. So that's what's nice. I'd like to retire. I don't have to do my regular job, and I could just break out all these examples from these old videos that I did and just start all over again. and like do the videos better with hopefully more accurate information. This hobby is a learning experience. Tomorrow I could probably do a better video on this one. And it's funny, you always learn stuff right after you do the video. You're like, oh, I could have put that in the video. I'll tell you one thing I did though. I did wait until I got this. You have to get this if you're into these Mossbergs. The history of O.F. Mossberg and Sons Incorporated. Victor Havlin and Cheryl Havlin. Yes, from Havlin Industries. Havlin, the Mossberg gun part gurus. This book is awesome. You know us. We're into the whole patent thing and design stuff, and this book is full of patents, patent numbers, and all kinds of explanations like that. That's what this whole book lives on, is these patent drawings. So these were always really hard to find, the patents for the Mossbergs. You could look through Mossberg's patents, but they relate to so many other things, like finding some of those Savage ones, whatever, they're difficult. And it's really interesting. Book is done in a way that this channel needs a book to be done. And I never had anything on Mossberg, so this is just really nice to have. And what else do I have here? I gave you the Lovelace Trapper patent, right? I was sitting here reading this thing. I was like, could you imagine they were setting up? I guess you'd have to be really careful with that thing, even on your own property. I mean, do you imagine something set up like that, where if something touches it, it fires a 38 caliber shell? I mean, what if your neighbor's dog came over there or something like that? I mean, you really had to be like, well, sorry, it's on my land, it's on my property. What can I tell you? had to be like really isolated to be using something like that, I would think, right? That would never pass muster today, I'll tell you that. So how did this thing shoot? That's what we want to know, right? It was a lot of fun. It didn't misfire. It didn't miss a beat. It was decently accurate. The sight picture looked fine. It was fun. I was able to replicate the that bolt handle jiggle to release the sear. I knew it would happen. It's, because it was definitely happening. Why would it not happen if it was chambered? Of course, it's going to still happen. But just to make sure, I just wanted to show you that does actually function, but function that way. But normally, if you didn't jiggle the bolt handle, you wouldn't think anything's wrong with the trigger or anything. It didn't have a light trigger, didn't have any other issues with the trigger. It was a very consistent trigger pull, and you had to pull pretty hard. I mean, it was working fine otherwise. As long as you didn't jiggle the bolt, you wouldn't know anything. You wouldn't know that it would do that. And it's just like, it would be the ultimate kid's first, learning rifle. If it wasn't for that, I would want to be. I definitely would want to be safe if a kid was playing with it, to make sure that if he fiddled with the bolt handle and without his finger on the trigger, that he didn't, shoot the cat. So it was. What can I say? It was fun to shoot. It didn't feel as tiny as it is shooting it. It held its own. And I have a real love for these things, I'll tell you. And it's really nice to get on the board on this first page of the chronology, And it's interesting because it's not just these. This is just the 22s. But then if you start researching, say, Mossberg shotguns, right? So that's different. We got shotguns checked off along here too. And in 1932 was the G4, the model G4, which is a 410 bolt action, single shot with a 2.5-inch chamber. And then they go from there. 1933, with all the different changes, and and they're off with the shotguns at the same time. 1932. So that was it. That was the kickoff to this hugely prolific list of firearms that Mossberg came up with. They definitely did not slow down. But yeah, look at this first page. It's the only thing we have on that first page. But it's nice to at least finally get on this page. You know what I mean? And what a collectible series of guns these Mossbergs really are. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. The Mossberg Model B. Excellent name. I like that. Model B. Somebody asked me, how do you spell that? I thought that was the craziest question. So, thanks for tuning in with me. Late night. I love these late night sessions. I'm going to take a ride to the range right now in the middle of the night. That's what's nice about a 24-hour range. I go there at like 1 in the morning. Nobody, just me for hours. I love it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all real soon. Later.